The desert stretched like an ocean of dust and heat. The kind of place where the horizon shimmered like a lie and the asphalt melted beneath your tires. Hank Dillard had been driving trucks for 40 years, maybe more. He stopped counting after his third divorce. The man had wrinkles carved deep as the Grand Canyon, a gut that spoke of too many diner meals, and eyes so tired they seemed to have seen every mile of America twice. He was hauling a load of machinery parts from El Paso to Phoenix that day, just another endless stretch of nothing. The radio had gone silent hours ago, the AC sputtered like it was giving up, and the only sound left was the rumble of his 18 wheels against the cracked blacktop. Hank took a drag from his cigarette, squinting through the windshield. "Hell of a day to die of boredom," he muttered. The clock on the dashboard blinked 3:33 p.m., like some kind of warning. He didn't believe in signs anymore. He used to, back when he wore a cross around his neck and said grace before every meal. But that was before his boy died, before the drinking started, before he decided God was a story for people too scared to face the silence. He hadn't prayed in 15 years. The heat shimmered harder, and for a second, he thought he saw something up ahead on the side of the road. A man, maybe, dressed in white. Hank blinked, leaned forward. "No way," he whispered. Out here, miles from anything, people didn't just stand on the shoulder. He slowed the rig, brakes hissing, tires groaning as he pulled over. The man was definitely there, barefoot, dusty, wearing what looked like some kind of long robe. He wasn't hitchhiking. He wasn't waving. He just stood there, calm as still water, watching Hank with eyes so deep they made the old trucker feel like a kid again. Hank rolled down the window. "You all right, fella? You lost?" The man smiled gently. His voice came out soft, like wind through a church bell. "I'm not lost, friend. But I could use a drink of water." Something in the way he said it, it wasn't desperate, but it carried weight. Hank reached into his cooler, grabbed a half-empty bottle, and handed it through the window. "Ain't cold, but it's water." The man took it with both hands, as if it were sacred. "Thank you." He drank, slow and deliberate, then looked up again. "You've been driving a long time, haven't you, Hank?" That made Hank pause. "How the hell do you know my name?" The man smiled again. "I know you've been tired, brother. Tired of the road. Tired of yourself." Hank frowned, stepping out of the cab. "Look, buddy, I don't know who you are or what kind of trick you're playing, but I don't like games." The stranger didn't move. He just looked at him, really looked. Those eyes weren't judging, though. They were knowing. Comforting. The way his mom used to look at him before bed, back when he was a kid saying his prayers to a ceiling that never answered. "I'm not here to play games," the man said quietly. "I'm here because you asked me to." "I didn't ask you nothin'," Hank said, his throat tightening. The man tilted his head slightly. "Didn't you? The night your boy died, on that hospital floor, you said, 'If you're real, you better show up one day.'" Hank froze. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The man's expression didn't change. "I heard you, Hank. I always hear you." Something inside Hank's chest went cold. "You're sayin', what, you're some kinda angel?" The man stepped closer. His shadow stretched long in the dying sun. "No, Hank. I'm the one you've been running from all these years." And that's when Hank's cigarette slipped from his fingers. Because somehow, deep down, without needing proof or miracles, he knew. This man wasn't just anyone. The way the air around him seemed still. The way his voice filled the silence like music. The way his eyes saw right through the grime of Hank's soul and still held love. Hank stumbled back, his heart pounding. "Jesus Christ." The man smiled faintly. "Yes." Hank's knees hit the gravel. Dust clung to his jeans, his palms. He stared up at him, at the stranger he'd just given water to. "This ain't real. I'm dreamin', or losin' my damn mind." "Maybe," Jesus said, kneeling beside him. "But you stopped for me. Most don't." Hank swallowed hard, tears burning behind his eyes. "Why me? I ain't worth saving. I've done things." "I know," Jesus said simply. "And I came anyway." They sat there on the shoulder of Route 10, a busted old truck idling beside them, the sky bleeding orange and gold. The world went quiet, except for the whisper of wind through sagebrush. Hank wiped his face with a trembling hand. "If you're really him, then why now? Why out here?" "Because," Jesus said, looking out at the empty road, "you're finally quiet enough to listen." Hank didn't speak. Couldn't. Jesus looked back at him. "You've carried more than any man should. The guilt, the loss, the anger. But I've been walking beside you through every mile." Hank let out a weak laugh, half a sob. "If you were there, you sure didn't do much to help." Jesus smiled sadly. "You wanted me to stop the pain. But I stayed to carry it with you." The words hit Hank like a blow to the gut. He turned away, ashamed. "I cussed your name, you know. Plenty of times." "I know," Jesus said softly. "And I still love you." Hank's chest broke open then, years of bitterness pouring out in gasping breaths. He didn't even notice he was crying until Jesus put a hand on his shoulder. It wasn't glowing, it wasn't dramatic, just a human hand, warm and steady. "You think you've been driving toward something," Jesus said. "But you've been driving away. It's time to turn around, Hank. Turn around. Go home." Hank blinked, confused. "Home? Ain't got one. Just this truck." "You do," Jesus said. "You just forgot where it is." And then, without another word, Jesus stood and started walking down the road, bare feet touching the burning pavement like it was cool grass. "Hey!" Hank shouted, stumbling to his feet. "Wait. Where you goin'?" Jesus turned once, that same quiet smile on his face. "To the next thirsty soul." And then he was gone. Just gone. Like heat haze melting into the horizon. Hank stood there for a long time, staring at the empty road. The bottle Jesus drank from lay by his boots, still half full. He picked it up, looked inside. The water shimmered faintly, clearer than any he'd ever seen. He didn't understand what just happened. But he felt it. Deep. Like something had cracked open inside him, and light was finally leaking through. He climbed back into the cab, turned the key, and sat there staring out at the desert. For the first time in decades, he whispered, "Thank you." And the wind outside the window seemed to whisper back. The next morning came slow and pale. The sky was bruised lavender, and the road stretched out like an old scar across the desert. Hank hadn't slept. He parked his rig behind a run-down gas station near Gila Bend and sat in the cab all night, staring at that half-full water bottle sitting on the dashboard. Every time the dawn light caught it, the water seemed to shimmer, almost alive. He rubbed his eyes and laughed quietly. "You've really lost it now, Hank," he said to himself. "You're talking to water." But deep down, he knew it wasn't madness. Something real had happened out there. He could still feel the weight of Jesus' hand on his shoulder, still hear that calm voice saying, "It's time to turn around. Turn around." The words had been echoing in his skull all night. Turn around from what? His route? His life? His sins? He wasn't sure. He got out of the cab, stretched, and walked into the gas station. The young cashier behind the counter looked half asleep, earbuds in, scrolling his phone. Hank grabbed a coffee, a donut, and went to pay. "You all right, man?" the kid asked, looking up. "You look like you seen a ghost." Hank smirked. "Something like that." He walked out with his coffee, climbed back into his truck, and just sat there. The road ahead went west, to Phoenix, to another drop-off, another paycheck, another week of empty motels. But behind him, east, was El Paso. His last stop before the encounter. And the words came again, quiet but certain. "Turn around." He slammed the cup into the holder, sighed, and muttered, "Fine. Have it your way." Then he fired up the engine, shifted gears, and pulled a U-turn across the empty highway. He didn't know what he was driving toward. But for once, he didn't care about the schedule. Hours rolled by. The sky grew hotter, the radio stayed silent. He drove past dry hills and long shadows, thinking about the last time he'd really felt anything. Maybe when his son, Danny, was still alive. That boy used to sit beside him in the passenger seat when he was little, pretending to shift gears with his tiny hands. He loved the open road. "One day, I'm gonna drive trucks too, Dad," he'd say. But life had other plans. A car wreck on the way home from college took him at 22. Hank remembered the hospital, the smell of disinfectant, the blinking machines, the way the doctor couldn't look him in the eye. That night, Hank had knelt beside his son's bed and whispered, "If you're real, you better show up one day, 'cause I can't do this alone." Then silence. Years of it. Until yesterday. Now, the memory felt different. Like Jesus had actually been listening all along. He passed a sign that read, Fort Stockton, 37 miles. He hadn't been through there in years. There was a diner off the highway he used to stop at all the time, Rosie's. He smiled faintly. Rosie had been kind to him back when he was drinking too much and sleeping too little. She'd always say, "One day, Hank, you're gonna meet the right someone who'll turn your life around." He'd always reply, "Lady, the only thing tennin' in my life is my wheels." Now those words stung a bit. When he pulled into the diner's gravel lot, the sign was half broken, paint peeling. But it was open. Same squeaky door, same smell of bacon grease and black coffee. Rosie was still there, older now, hair silver, but that same warm smile. She looked up from behind the counter and blinked. "Well, I'll be damned. Hank Dillard." He grinned. Still breathin', somehow. She laughed and poured him a cup. "You look different. Softer, maybe. Quit drinkin'." Something like that. They talked for a while. Small talk, memories, the kind that sits easy between two old souls. But then she asked, "So what brings you back through these parts? You always said the desert was a one-way road for you." Hank stared at his coffee. "Met someone yesterday. Said I should turn around." Rosie chuckled. "What, like an old flame?" He looked up at her, eyes steady. "No, like him." Her smile faded a little. "You mean Jesus?" "Yeah." For a moment, the diner went quiet. The hum of the fridge, the clatter of dishes in the back, all faded into the distance. Rosie studied his face, searching for sarcasm, but all she saw was a tired man telling the truth. She finally said, "And what did he say?" Hank took a deep breath. "He said it's time to go home." Rosie nodded slowly. "You gonna listen?" "I think I already am." He sat there for a while after she went to serve another customer. The coffee got cold. Outside, a dust storm began to gather in the distance, swirling like smoke. Hank watched it, the way it twisted and rolled. It reminded him of how his life had been, always moving, never landing. Then he heard the bell above the door ring again. A man walked in. Younger, maybe 30. Jeans, plaid shirt, worn-out boots. He looked lost. Sat at the counter, ordered water. Rosie poured it, but when he went to pay, he realized he didn't have his wallet. "Don't worry about it," Hank said from his booth. "I got it." The guy turned and smiled, grateful. "Thanks, man. Been walkin' half a day. Truck broke down 10 miles back." "No problem," Hank said. "Need a ride?" "Wouldn't say no." Hank finished his coffee, paid the bill, and they walked out together. The dust storm was closer now, but something about it felt strange. Not threatening. Almost alive. The man thanked him again as they climbed into the truck. "You know," he said, "you look like a man who's been through hell and made it back." Hank laughed softly. "You ain't wrong." The stranger smiled. "Sometimes, that's when he shows up." Hank froze. "What'd you say?" The man shrugged. "Just something my mom used to say. When you've been through hell, that's when Jesus walks with you." The words sent a chill down Hank's spine. He started the engine, glanced at the rear-view mirror. The storm was right behind them now, rolling like a wall of dust and light. And for a brief moment, just one, Hank thought he saw a figure standing inside it. A man in white. Watching. He didn't say a word. He just gripped the wheel tighter, feeling peace settle over him in a way it never had before. The stranger beside him looked out the window, eyes wide at the glowing horizon. "You think that storm's gonna catch us?" Hank smiled faintly. "No," he said. "Not this time." He drove on through the dust and light, knowing somehow that the journey wasn't over, that Jesus had more to say, and that the most shocking words were still waiting ahead. The storm followed them like a living thing. The sky turned from gold to gray, the air thick with dust that made the horizon vanish. Hank drove slow, headlights cutting through the swirl. The stranger sat quiet beside him, hands folded, eyes closed like he was praying. 10 miles later, the storm eased. The wind fell away. When it cleared, they were parked beside a lonely gas station, abandoned, sign rusted, windows cracked. "Guess this is as far as you go," Hank said, turning to the stranger. But the passenger didn't move. His eyes opened, calm, deep, familiar. Too familiar. "Don't be afraid, Hank," he said. Hank froze. His voice. The same soft tone, the same peace in the words. "You again," Hank whispered. "But how?" The man smiled. "You didn't think I'd just leave you without finishing what I came to say, did you?" The words hit like thunder. Hank's breath caught. You were the man on the road. You're him." Jesus nodded gently. "I come in many ways. You've met me twice now, and both times you stopped to offer water." Hank felt dizzy. You tricked me." "No," Jesus said. "I met you where you were. You wouldn't have heard me as the man in white again. You'd have doubted. So I came as one of your own. Another traveler. That's how I've always worked, Hank. Quietly." The air inside the cab seemed still. Even the hum of the engine faded. Hank swallowed. "You said it was time to go home. What did you mean?" Jesus looked out at the empty road. "You've been running from grief so long, you forgot what home feels like. Your boy, Danny, is there. Waiting." Hank's chest ached. You mean, alive," Jesus said softly, "in me. He's safe. He always was." Hank blinked hard, shaking his head. "You're tellin' me my boy's in heaven?" "Yes," Jesus said. "And he's been praying for you." The old trucker's hands trembled on the steering wheel. "Prayin' for me?" Jesus nodded. "He asked me to find you. He said, 'Tell my dad he doesn't have to be angry anymore. Tell him he can come home.'" Hank broke. He covered his face with both hands, tears spilling down his calloused fingers. "I can't," he whispered. "I can't go home. There's nothing left." "There's everything left," Jesus said. "You just haven't looked." He pointed out the windshield. In the distance, the storm had cleared completely. A small roadside chapel stood under the blue sky, white and simple, its cross crooked from years of wind. "Go there," Jesus said. "You'll find what you've been missing." Hank looked up, sniffling. "Ain't been in a church since my boy's funeral." Jesus smiled kindly. "Then it's long past time." Hank started the truck and drove. The little chapel grew larger, sunbeams cutting through the clouds above it. But when he looked to the passenger seat, Jesus was gone. No door opened. No sound. Just gone. All that was left was the empty water bottle and a faint scent of rain. He parked in front of the chapel. The door creaked when he pushed it open. Inside was quiet, dusty pews, a Bible on the altar, sunlight streaming through cracked windows. No one else. He sat in the front row, head bowed. He didn't know what to say. Words felt small. But somehow his heart knew. "I don't know how to pray anymore," he said aloud. "But I guess you already know that." The silence around him felt different this time, not empty, but listening. He took a deep breath. "I miss my boy. I miss my wife. I miss the man I used to be before I got so damn angry." His voice cracked. "You said to turn around. I think I finally get it now. You didn't mean the road. You meant my heart." He sat there for a long time, just breathing, feeling the weight lift, slowly, gently, like fog burning off in the morning sun. When he finally opened his eyes, something caught his attention. On the altar, the Bible was open. He hadn't noticed that before. He stood, walked up, and saw that it was turned to the Gospel of John, chapter 4. His heart skipped. He read, "Jesus said to her, 'Give me a drink.'" It was the story of the Samaritan woman at the well. Hank laughed softly through tears. "You've got one hell of a sense of humor, Lord." Then his eyes fell on another line further down the page. "Whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst." The same words. The same water. The same truth. He sank to his knees right there, whispering, "I believe you." For the first time in decades, he meant it. He sat there for hours, maybe more. When he finally left, the world outside looked brighter, like someone had cleaned the dust off the sky. He climbed back into his truck, started the engine, and smiled at his reflection in the rearview mirror. His eyes didn't look so tired anymore. As he pulled back onto the highway, he whispered, "Thank you, Lord, for not giving up on a stubborn old fool." The road stretched ahead, long and open, but it didn't feel lonely now. He reached for the radio, turned it on, and static gave way to an old country hymn, one he hadn't heard since he was a boy. "Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound!" He sang along, his rough voice cracking on every word, tears rolling down his cheeks. Then, just as the song faded, he glanced out the window and saw something in the distance. A figure walking along the shoulder. Dressed in white. Barefoot. Smiling. Hank slowed the rig, pulled over, and rolled down the window. He didn't see anyone when he looked again. But this time, he didn't need to. He knew. He shifted gears and hit the road, sunlight gleaming off the hood. And somewhere, between the desert and the sky, a still small voice whispered through the wind. "You gave me water, Hank. And I gave you life." The old trucker smiled through his tears. "Yeah," he said softly. "You sure did." And for the first time in 40 years, Hank Dillard wasn't running anymore. He was driving home.